is Tuesday. It's about that time. We are live. This is PrimerTime on UCY.tv. My name is Michael, and I was observing some CP.
Oh, that would be why we are 1 or 2 minutes behind 9 o'clock. My name is Nicholas. It's good to be here.
Nick, what's going on with you?
Oh, I'm live. Just another day in Mr. Robinson's neighborhood, and that would be in Louisiana. A place where two grown black men can go ahead and shoot each other to death, and
and have an impact on a discussion regarding.
Okay, sounds like we're back on, Michael. You there?
In fact, end up profiting off of the destruction of the culture because, to be honest with you, this is part of the culture decay right here. This little incident in Louisiana with we've got New Orleans Saints player. Can you hear it? Will Smith and former player, and it turned into
doesn't
kind of a
affect
mess.
Anybody's fantasy league here?
Absolutely not. No. So you go ahead and continue to bet on NFL as it was normal. But I mean, we've seen this in the past. We've seen Brett Musburger, open up his mouth and it
wasn't Musburger. It was a Musburger.
Right, yeah, no.
Brett Musburger calls college football games. There you go, Mr. Pink Eye.
So we've got these people, really opening their mouth and making statements where they have no place at the time. It really just knee-jerk reactions. And comes to find out that as the situation is being explained and explored further in Louisiana, it may not just be a wanton murder
there's always more to the story than what originally and initially comes out. The fact of the matter is that two grown men who couldn't figure out how to end an argument without shooting each other did what comes to this natural conclusion in that area. Just like what it was if it was Chicago. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Tuesday, and we're live for reals this time. This is PrimerTime on UCY.tv. My name is Michael, and my father was not pictured near Lee Harvey Oswald at any point in his years.
And I'm Nicholas. It's good to be back live after a 3-week hiatus. It's been a move. It's been crappy weather, and it's good to actually be back on. That moving thing, when you start looking at stressors in life, you can lose your job, you can lose a family member, you can lose a spouse, and then it's moving. So and you've got family, and this wasn't a military sponsored move for you this time, so you had to load the truck. Yeah, the good thing is the next time it will be. And the thought did cross my mind about contributing to the local economy by hiring a bunch of broke college students with very strong backs to do the heavy lifting. But
I've been in that situation before, and I'm going to tell you what. I was not happy with the movers that were hired. Situation I was in. I don't know if it was a little bit of miscommunication or if it was methamphetamine use or whatever, but. There were some problems with it. It ended up costing the people who I helped move quite a bit more than they had originally planned. And
Well, big thing,
I'm glad I didn't have to do it.
The big thing is we normally get an allowance of 11 or 13,000 pounds worth of stuff. So having to move that much on our own, it's difficult to say the least. I wanted to take a second. We've got a good friend of the show, Oddball, who is out and about amongst his new environs in the world, and he sent me a little bit of information that pertains to us particularly. We have been awarded, he and I and assorted sundry members of our previous unit in Korea have been awarded a Joint Meritorious Unit Award. And that is, in the order of precedence, that's second to only the Presidential Unit Citation. So, for the period of time that we were live and direct, coming to you from the glorious Republic of Korea. We must have done something right because people took it upon us to bestow upon us this honor.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome. Does that get you a bump in pay?
Absolutely not. We're going to have to wait until the results of the fiscal year 2016 Master Sergeant Board results get released, which is Tuesday, May 10th. And that will tell me if I can continue to go on being the senior most intelligence analyst in my grade in the Army.
Well, that's fairly impressive.
I didn't quite know what to make about that, whether it was good to say that, you know what, you can stay in a long time if you don't get in trouble, or if you stay in a long time because you don't get in trouble, you won't get promoted. So I don't know I don't know if that's...
Well, that's kind of an interesting topic that kind of reflects on what we're kind of about here. So you went into the military at a completely different time in our nation's development and progress. And with our fighting forces having a completely different approach to many things, especially like propaganda. Like, well, you went in, were you Army of One or be all you can be?
We were be all you can be.
Be all
matter of fact, we were be all you can be. We're still hiring.
Yeah,
because at that point in time, it was the post Desert Storm drawdown, and as a matter of fact, when I got to my first duty station, there were actually guys who were getting out as I was arriving, and they were being paid a handsome sum to separate from service. We're talking about guys who had, just come in, done 4 to 6 years, and we're being told, "Hey, guess what? Poor little Contra has no more bullets for his gun."
And you got tossed, these guys got tossed, and they got paid to get tossed.
Yeah, they got paid to separate. They were given a severance, and
well, that sounds like a really good deal.
Well, at a time it was, and then
the money and shot at. Sign me up for that, please.
Yeah, but that's the funny thing, because less than 10 years later, they were screaming for him to come back in.
But that's completely within the history of our nation in following wars. I mean, after World War I, we decimated our military supply. After World War II, we decimated the military supply. After Korea, we didn't necessarily decimate it, but we shipped it off to various countries. We left a lot of it in Korea. Vietnam, we pretty much emptied the military after that.
Well, and I think that one of the things that you're going to have as a common denominator in all that is that throughout that entire time period, we relied very heavily on conscription. We had the draft and we had required service.
I'm talking about equipment, not necessarily
G.I. Joe. And that goes to it, because that speaks hand in hand with the quality of the equipment that the soldiers are given. Were not considered professional volunteers. At that time, everybody had either conscript service or they were being recalled from previous active duty stints. So after Vietnam is when you see the professionalization of the military, and you see people actually starting to request and require that the services be outfitted, quite a bit better than they had been.
What would you say that is the percent drawdown usually following these conflicts, that results in, massive contracts yet again and financing of said new equipment, which we probably dropped from. Did you see the video of the Humvees dropping from the plane?
Yeah, that was the 173rd Airborne out of Vicenza, Italy, and U.S.
Way to drop names on these dudes. Thanks.
Yeah. So the funniest thing about that throughout the whole thing that I see is that, there's probably one of two things happening right now. There's a rigger who is furiously trying to change his name on any official documentation that shows that he packed those chutes, and or a battalion commander who is going quickly out of the Army at his current rank.
So how much do you think one of those Humvees cost to the taxpayer?
Well, they're selling them right now for $10,000 on the.
Yeah, that's used. Those are ones that are 15, 20 years old. How much do you think?
Which is exactly what the ones that jumped out of the airplane are. They're the ones that are getting sold are 15, 20 years old are still the same ones that are being used overseas.
They're not. You're not getting brand new
Oh
Humvees.
no. As a matter of fact, 2 years ago in Korea, my Humvee was easily been repaired at a depot 3 times, and I think we had on the data plate that it was originally manufactured in '92 or '93.
Wow, wow. That's in that first wave of the Hummers that came in to replace the Jeeps.
Yeah, I think those were earlier. Those would have been like '89 or so.
Wow. Yeah.
So,
Wow.
but the interesting thing about that whole video is, aside from four, I think was the grand total of Humvees that we call burning in. There was one that dropped uncontrolled descent out of each of the heavy lift aircraft that it was released from. So in those drops, every pass that an aircraft made, there was in succession one Humvee burning in. And the best thing out of all was the comment made by the individual who was taking the video, which is funny because they're going after this guy now, not the people who rigged the aircraft or the aircraft loadmaster or anything like that, but they're going after him because he was heard on the tape saying, "Well, that one's on fire. Do you think we should call it in?" I'm like, yeah, no, they'll figure it out when they have just a smoldering pile of aluminum.
Well, it's always best to kill the messenger.
Yeah, well, that's what they're looking to do. And speaking of
Yeah.
killing the messenger and getting rid of people, this promotion board that gets released, you can say goodbye to a good amount of soldiers, because this is also part of what's called the qualitative management process. And this is the Army's opportunity to get rid of soldiers who may have had some kind of violation or non-judicial punishment in their records at their current grade. So, yeah, anybody that's getting identified to be gone will be out by September 1st.
Will they get a nice little severance package?
They're going to likely be told, "Thanks for playing. Don't let the door hit you on the way out."
Oh, that's a bummer for those guys.
Yeah.
That's really kind of a shame. How does the thing about the $600 surcharge for your health care hit you now?
Oh, it hasn't hit yet, and that's going to be a uphill battle in Congress before anybody
Let's go this.
decides to do that. That's the kiss of death for that career.
So that was not approved. That was just a.
Yeah, it's a
proposal. That's just a proposal.
Yeah, that's a proposal. If you're going to charge people,
do you have to meet like a $500 deductible before you get shot in the ass and have to get that bullet removed or something?
Well, the one thing that's interesting is that you already get what's arguably the worst health care of the federal system. So now we're going to charge you. Now we're going to charge you even more to get that. Yeah, that sounds socialist. Sounds like something Bernie Sanders would come up with.
Well, and now that we've brought up tonight, it's Super Tuesday, and it's Indiana, and Lion Ted has taken a dive. And I find it interesting that Lion Ted drops the race after being so vehemently saying he was going all the way to the end. I find it to be very interesting that Ted Cruz drops out a mere 7 hours after Donald Trump says that Ted Cruz's father worked with Lee Harvey Oswald in the Fair Play for Cuba Committee in New Orleans in 1963. So,
yeah, I'll tell you right now, I don't think that has any merit whatsoever. I also think
they've got photos from the Warren Commission report, and then if you're going to say that that's got no merit, we also got to look at the CIA director John Brennan coming out and saying that the 28 pages of the 9/11 report
are mostly untrue.
It's like, well, thanks a lot. So which questions are we supposed to ask tonight? Which are we not supposed to ask? And which are what's for real? And what's I mean seriously, if
what I look is what's real and what isn't real is that in this coming election, the assault on individuals' right to bear arms is not an afterthought. I mean that is coming.
Definitely. And we see it everywhere.
We've got the goods on the Supreme Court nominee who has had more than one opportunity to take a stand against the individual right of the citizen to bear arms. And out of the 4 court cases that he was basically put before him, he's voted against the Second Amendment all 4 times. So, it's interesting, that people would think that a sitting president who has a overt gun control agenda would not go forth and put somebody up to the scrutiny and the process of confirmation that has the same values and opinions as he does.
Well, and it only stands to get better with the selection of Hillary. That seems all but imminent.
Well, I don't know. I mean, looking at some late results right now, it looks like some Hoosiers are feeling the burn.
Yeah. Who's your daddy?
Well,
I don't think
the latest thing I got right now is that CNN, which is of the enemy, has called it for Bernie Sanders.
Now that is fairly amazing. I will say I am impressed with that. Not that means anything, because now we have to figure in super delegates and all that other shenanigans crap that says that your vote doesn't count. So whatever, it's still Hillary.
Well, I think it's interesting because you take a look, and I find this, in my experience, I find this to be true. What does it take on the Republican side of the House to get the nomination outright? 1237?
That's it, 1237. That's the magic number. Right?
What does it take on the Democratic side of the House?
I believe it's 23 something on the Democratic side.
So roughly twice as many, right?
Right.
Okay. So isn't it ironic that in the course of the political process that we have in this country, people with a liberal agenda take twice as many of a resource to get the same results done as people with a conservative viewpoint?
I'll tell you what, to me, it doesn't fit into the left-right paradigm. To me, it just says that the whole thing is broken on all sides. This whole thing is fixed. It's corrupt as all hell. They're telling you to your face it's corrupt. They're giving you blatant evidence. They are putting the loaded, steaming turd in your hand and telling you it's chicken pot pie.
And you get 2 in each pot.
That's right. You get 2 turds in eeach pot. And
I think that was originally used under Roosevelt's campaign.
Right. I don't know. I'm fairly disgusted with it. And going along with the disgust, we've got a Bloomberg publication. It's a fairly recently minted magazine called The Trace. And one of the precepts of the new crop of gun control initiatives is smart guns. And, the Trace likes to deal with the smart gun issue in its typical Bloomberg-esque think of the children first, please, fashion. And I've got some serious issues with smart guns. Number one, I think that the technology as it exists now and in its current form is completely unreliable. We've seen that with the Air Matrix 22 that was recently sold.
Yeah,
we sold here in the United States a few years ago. It was almost a non-functional pistol, whether or not it was a smart gun itself. It was limited to 22 long rifle. I don't know. If plenty of people out there have a smartphone, get your fingers wet and try to use it.
Yeah.
If something simple that like screws up your smartphone, your touchscreen, if you what, can you not use the firearm somewhere near a microwave or something? Or if a car with an old truck with unshielded plug wires comes rolling down the road, does that set off your destroy your lock? And then there's also many other proposals. I mean, Hillary Clinton's called for smart gun technology that gives the government, the federal government, a key to turn it off.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because New Jersey was supposed to be the state that brought this into motion. They had a measure that was passed that stated as soon as the smart gun technology became available to market in the United States, that they were going to have a state mandate that all firearms sold in the state.
They actually have the state mandate already. It's already codified in the law, and it says that once a smart gun is sold on the market in New Jersey, that all firearms have to be smart guns within 3 years sold in New Jersey.
Right.
luckily, that's one of the few times I think that the firearms manufacturing public has come together, and the firearms retailer, and basically the firearms industry has come together as one, and sort of put a stop to it, because pretty much every gun shop that was selling it, number one, nobody in New Jersey picked it up, which I found to be fairly amazing. Nobody sold one in New Jersey. They were actually, I think, three of them were sold in California, and the importer, the gun shop that was proudly importing them, quickly cut all ties and painted over logos, and no, that wasn't us.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a nice thing to see, considering that just not too long ago we had the issue with the AK-74 pistols being brought in, and that had always been kind of a project that no manufacturer was going to undertake, because that would turn that 7N6 5.45 by 39 millimeter ammo into what's considered armor piercing out of a pistol, right? That's the entire gist of the armor piercing ammunition argument in the United States. Is they don't want you to have pierces a vest out of a pistol.
Right, and that pretty much the same for any of the steel core ammunition.
Pretty much. And I'll tell you what, even if it's not steel core, as long as it's not an aluminum core round, pretty much anything that attains like 2,600 feet per second is going to pierce a Kevlar vest. Probably pierce about 25 layers of Kevlar. It won't go through metal, any sort of AR-500 or any of those ceramic plates or anything like that. It'll pierce about 25 layers of Kevlar. And that armor-piercing ammunition law, well, it got triggered, and then we had the big run on the 7N6 ammunition, which was dirt cheap in the United States for a long time. I mean, I think it was a can of 1,180 rounds used to sell for $40 or something like that. And then after the ban on that came through, which was right on the heels of or actually just preceding the push to outlaw the 5.56 green tipped ammo. They're really trying to take away every kind of possibility you can, and they're exploiting every bit of legal trickery they have. And I'm not necessarily a student of philosophy, and I'm not really that good of a student of the Greeks, but we have to refer to Tacitus, and he said the more laws a country has, or a nation has, or a state has, the more corrupt it is. And I think we see that with the ATF and firearms laws at the federal level.
Since the ATF is no longer a impartial, arm of the Department of Justice, it is now and it really hasn't been, I would say, since the Clinton era. Going back all the way to the Branch Davidian storming, the compound being razed to the ground. You got to kind of look at that as what are we really coming to in the States?
I think we're coming to revolution, to be honest with you. I think there's a lot of distaste for everything that's going on, and I think you see it even as something as blatantly obvious as the presidential campaign right now. You see it in the amount of firearms. Once again, sets another record. The numbers for firearms sales are through the roof. We as private civilians in the United States and private citizens, we purchase enough firearms every 3 months to basically to arm the Russian and the Chinese armies.
Yeah, but you know what? It's the same. It's the same people buying it. To hear the one side of the issue, and then the other side is no. It's people that realize that they're the ones that have to provide for their own safety and security.
And I don't think it's the same people buying their fourth AR-15 or their sixth Glock or anything like that. No, I think there's a good portion of new purchasers out there. Paying attention to my forums, and some people that I know, there's people that are asking a lot of questions that are first-time buyer questions, and I think that represents the fact that people are voting with their wallet. They're voting to buy guns.
It could be, but then you take a look. what is it that happens every time there's a mass shooting? You know, the immediate blame goes to the right wing. It's like, oh, these guys are they're neocons, they're fascist. But when it comes out and you actually see who the guy is that did the shooting, it's always a socialist. You ever notice that?
Sometimes, and if it's not necessarily a socialist, it's somebody who's usually on some sort of psychotropic medication. I'm not necessarily playing into that left right paradigm that's being pushed into us by the media. I really don't think that there's any kind of difference between the parties. I think that the only difference is the Democrats want you to argue over abortion, and the Republicans want you to argue over guns. I think that's the two main differences between the parties. They both get money from the exact same fucking banks. They're the
Well,
same. They're the same creature. They're their own built-in entertainment for the masses.
yeah.
So yeah, I don't see any kind of difference between them. What I do see is a lot of what could traditionally be called leftist tactics being used to usurp gun rights and push that narrative that a firearm is dangerous and it will get you in your sleep.
Well,
And then
here's
you're
the
safer off
interesting.
giving your child a rattlesnake than having a
Yeah.
22 rifle locked up in a closet.
So here's the interesting thing. You know, we've got the federal government going after individual privacies. Whether it's the iPhone issue, saying they want to have Apple give them the key to unlock all phones, or interesting case was a woman in Los Angeles who was a reputed member of a gang by association to her boyfriend was ordered by a judge to provide the fingerprint that would unlock her phone in order to go ahead and expose either her associations to this man or whatever the case may be that they were looking for. What's to say that a judge doesn't require a smartphone type situation be used in getting somebody to give up their biometric information that would be used on any of these Armitex pistols, whether it's the fingerprint or whether it's the contour of the palm, whatever type of biometric information that they would use in order to make this a smart gun. What's to prevent a judge from ordering the individual to provide that to a law enforcement agency?
What's to prevent that information from being hacked? I
Exactly.
mean, we see there's hacking all over the place. As a matter of fact, I dropped you a story there. One of the larger firearms retailers is somebody that we've talked about their sales, and I've actually bought things from them in the past, and I kind of actually enjoy looking at their website because they've got things that appeal to me. It's not the usual AR-15 Glock conglomeration that most gun shops have, but AIM Surplus, a retailer that's honestly they've got a lot of high powers. That's why I look at them. They got hacked, and pretty much every one of their online customers ever, all their information got dropped out. Now, you've been a victim of this sort of thing. What does that mean?
Well,
What kind of risk are they at?
that's one of those things that whether it's somebody getting their bank card information skimmed or whether their card number's been stolen by somebody who's running their card and scanning the magnetic strip and getting the information off that. There's as long as there's a will, there's a way. So if somebody wants to go ahead and hack that or steal that information, they're gonna get it. And that's in law enforcement. You always hear them say, we have to be right 100% of the time, and the criminal only has to be right once. Well, yeah, and that's why you get paid handsomely to do that job. So I look at it this way. I think the argument will come at a certain point during the Hillary Clinton presidency or coronation, depending upon how you want to look at it.
I am so glad you realize the truth of the situation, and we are getting Hillary installed whether you like it or not.
Well, when you look at it and you hear Debbie Wasserman Schultz tell you that we have these super delegates to make sure that the party chooses the candidate. Well,
Right. And then she said something about she'd prefer to see independents excluded from any sort of primary processes.
yeah, because we don't want the person who's not our chosen one to win.
That's right. Yeah, Oh yeah, dirty, dirty, dirty. Let's get some fire bombs and Molotov cocktails and tannerite and blah blah blah. No, no, no.
Yeah,
That's not the
no,
answer
no, no,
yet.
no, no. Stay away from that. Especially do not put tannerite under a lawnmower.
That's still bad. That guy's still a jerk. He still lost his leg.
Yeah, I was going to say he's still missing a limb.
Yeah. So we got a couple other stories here. Mainly, right now, tonight's kind of like focused on a little bit of gun control. I'm I see it coming down the pipe. Uh, I see it being inevitable, and I see a push for an Australia style.
Well, no. That's what
Basically,
Hillary Clinton says she is going for. Hillary
and
Clinton
and
says she
I
would go
think
for Australian style gun control.
and I think she'll get it. I
I
think she'll absolutely get it.
I think that she will attempt it. I don't think. And here's the thing. I think if it were to come down to this, and it comes down to Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, I think that there's two possible outcomes. Number one is that the people who were so disgusted with Donald Trump stay home and don't vote, or the people who were so disgusted with Hillary
I'm
stay
sorry.
home and
I'm
don't vote.
sorry. You actually think that your vote actually counts?
No. I'm
Considering
not
that
saying that
Bible.
it counts one way or the other. I'm saying that if if the people who are ardent Bernie Sanders supporters right now, who have just propelled him to a victory in Indiana, if just like they did in many of the other states where she won on coin tosses 6 times in a row. If
Oh, no kidding.
if those people sit there and say, you know what the hell is this, and they decide to stay home, we might have a President Trump, and we might have voters that coalesce around Donald Trump just to prevent Hillary, because what has Hillary's game been? Hillary's game has been feminism. Hillary's game has been, aren't you ready for a woman in the White House? It's been everything about gender warfare and gender bias. But yet,
Well, it's
but
cultural
who does
Marxism. It's creating a divide, and it's making us not focus on a common goal. It's creating this intranational squabble that really keeps our eyes off the main prize. Which, well, I'll just give you my personal assessment of the situation. But the dollar's about to shit the bed, and there's a whole lot going on with that. I think that would back it up. I mean, number one, the 28 pages. That was kind of an issue that didn't need to be brought up, and knowing exactly what it would bring up. I mean, there's no secret about Saudi involvement. That's been known for 15, 16 years.
why would you make such a claim? And oh, by the way, if you do make that claim, we are going to divest ourselves of American bonds.
Exactly. Let's refer to that, and then let's refer to also some recent stories that show that the Saudi Arabians are actually looking to divest themselves of the oil industry and get into, now the Saudis get nuclear tech, and there's nobody screaming about Saudis getting nukes.
Yeah, because they're the good guys in the desert, right?
Right. Because they only, they only behead 100 people a week or something like that. They're almost a democracy.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's interesting. We talked a while back about a New York power player by the name of Sheldon Silver. Do you remember that guy?
Ha ha! Sheldon Silver is one of the architects of the SAFE Act, and pretty much not a friend to a gun-owning New Yorker, and not a friend to most Americans and the health of our nation.
Yeah, well, apparently a judge and jury in New York agree and have decided to send him away to prison for 12 years.
Well, that's I guess he outlived his usefulness, or he got really really ballsy, because that's kind of rare that sort of situation happens. I finally, I guess that's all you can say at that point.
Yeah.
One down, how many more to go?
Well, that's just the small victories that count. But speaking of another individual along the same lines, Mayor Michael Bloomberg decided to go ahead and interject himself into the recent safe space and the I guess what do you call it? The Safe Space Matters movement. I guess that's what you could call it.
The social justice and the triggering and the rampant PTSD amongst people who
So,
are easily
one of
triggered.
the
The professionally appalled. I've heard them
right.
called the professionally appalled.
Yeah, so you have this cabal at many of the universities across the nation right now, and I think the big thing was it started with the University of Missouri with the concerned student 1950 whatever. Um, he went to a commencement speech, and he was booed, and I kind of take just his words at face value, and I'll read a quick quote right here. Is that college's whole purpose is to learn how to deal with difficult situations, not to run away from them. And he goes on by saying a microaggression is exactly that, micro. One of the most dangerous places on a college campus is a safe space because it creates the false impression that we can isolate ourselves from those who hold different views. Now, I don't like the guy personally, but I got to say that that's a relatively okay statement that I could stand by. You get told from day one that college is a place and university is a place that you go to have your horizons expanded and to hear different viewpoints and to give you points of view that you may not necessarily be familiar or comfortable with, but are there to go ahead and enlighten you. And I'll tell you that when you hear these students right now that say that, hateful or aggressive or disliked speech should be banned, I mean, we're succumbing to the socialist ideology.
In the words of the hip hop superstar Killis, my Marxist feminist dialectic brings all the boys to the yard, and they're like, "It's better than yours."
Okay.
Damn right, it's better than yours. I could teach you, but the means of production belong to the state, so there shall be no charge.
That's a very very interesting take on that. I'm sure she's very
Yeah,
happy.
I'll tell you what. Seriously, though, milkshake is like a dirty like a dirty secret. That song comes on, and I will dance.
Yeah, guilty pleasures.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
So I just
So,
I just thought it was interesting how he stood out there and he said that, and he got booed for it. So the
well, he's also got a fairly tenuous relationship with the social justice crowd, and it's fairly interesting because where he's picked up a lot of flack is for some of his comments on firearms. And recently he was heard to say something that actually makes sense, but is completely politically incorrect, that a lot of the firearms problem in the United States is not necessarily all gun owners, but a small segment of firearms owners. And when he mentioned that small segment of firearms owners, that caused some consternation again, and it was viewed as he was being politically incorrect. Now, there are facts out there that people really don't like to look at, and statistics that, with data that's been compiled by reputable sources, and people who really don't have an interest in anything other than compiling data, and it does show that what he was saying was absolutely correct. Now, his methodology about it is completely wrong. His answer to the situation is completely wrong. But he's absolutely correct in saying that the predominant amount of firearms violence comes from that subgroup. Now, the answer is not removing the firearms from that subgroup, but eliminating the situations and the circumstances that lead to the firearms violence. And honestly, there's got to be a change in the drug war, and there's got to be a change in the employment opportunities in this country. If you really want to look at it, why would a kid who's in that certain demographic, Hillary Clinton referred to them as super predators, why would he take a job working at fast food for $8 an hour, or he could, slang a little bit of crack or meth or weed or heroin or whatever, and work for not nearly as long, be not his body taxed as much, don't come home smelling like French fries and horsey sauce from Arby's or something like that, and he's got a little bit of panache. How can you unsell that to a child? I mean, we've got a media that glamorizes that. We've got an entertainment industry that totally idolizes that lifestyle. Yet you want to take away my firearm because that's the situation. I think we're looking at the wrong issues, and I think that really gets to the heart of the matter. They will look at all the wrong issues until they take all the guns away.
Well,
Because it doesn't really
that's the
matter
thing.
what the issue is. They have to make the situation intolerable in the United States enough to where people are begging for the relief of gun control.
Well, and that's one of the things that I think is interesting. I saw a comment, and it was posted. It was a story 2 days ago, and I can't remember what it was exactly. But the poster who posted the comment was interesting to me because he's self-identified as a very left of the fence individual, and he even said, the reason we didn't have these mass shootings is not really whether we did or we didn't. He said it wasn't politicized, and it wasn't a problem that had to be created like it is now. And he said this is a ploy for gun control. He said most of these are either false flag attacks or didn't happen. And I said, well,
and if you start looking at things like the gun crime stat tracker that there's a Reddit subgroup called Guns Are Cool, and they put out a firearms and a homicide tracker and a school shooting tracker that a lot of media sources quote, and they'll say things like 574 school shootings in the first 3 months of this year. Well, what they're not actually saying is some of these school shootings do not occur at a school, do not occur with school students. They have nothing to do with the school. Some of them are not even shooting. Some of them are actually defensive shooting. Some of these are cops shooting criminals. These statistics can be manipulated. So,
every statistic can be manipulated. That's certainly the truth. But what I'm saying is that when you have the presumptive nominee in Hillary Clinton, do you think that we're going to continue to see these kinds of stories on the front page? Terror in the elementary school.
Absolutely, I think we'll see those stories nonstop.
Right,
I think we'll see those stories nonstop. I have to just go back to the unpleasantness of late 2012, early 2013, and the attempt by one of our fine representatives, Ms. Dianne Feinstein, who happens to be dual citizen of Israel, and her push for the latest incarnation of her gun ban. And I was working gun shows at that time, and I'm telling you, man, the carnage just in those shows was unreal. The amount of money that was being spent, and I worked the weekend before the vote on that bill. I think the vote on that bill was on a Tuesday, and I worked that weekend at a show in Houston, and one of the bigger shows in Houston. So this thing is, I mean, it took up like 3 pavilions of the Reliance Center, and that's a big building. I mean, it's a huge building. The amount of the prices on the firearms, of course, were outrageous, but I mean, on everything, magazines, AR-15, regular standard NATO used GI magazines that you can find anywhere all day long for $5 now in our inflated society. You find them now. At that time, there was a lady who was selling them for $50 a piece, and she sold out of them things before noon on Saturday. And she must have had how big are those transit cases that you guys fill with magazines to throw in the back of a Hummer?
Oh, you got to figure they're probably a good how 20 to 25 inches wide. They're probably 30 inches high and probably 50 inches wide.
So how many magazines you say fit in there? About 50 of them?
Yeah, more than that. Probably 100.
Okay, so 100. Well, this woman had stacks of them things, and she was selling them at $50 a piece, and I'm serious, she left with a wad of cash at noon.
If she was smart, she would have gone back and done the same thing the next day.
Well, maybe I think she sold out of her stock.
Yeah. Well, I think
there was a lot of that. I mean, I'll tell. I sold an AR-10. I sold an AR-10 for $2,400. And I know for a fact that AR-10 that I sold for $2,400 was built for like $7.
Oh yeah, certainly, and that's one of the things. You're still able to find 500 or sub $500 all aluminum construction ARs. So you don't even have to get into the hybrid or the polymer models to get an AR under $500. It can still be done. But the interesting thing
I think we're in the eye of the storm for that, though. I think once it becomes becomes apparent that Hillary is going to be the one, you're going to start seeing those prices rise again, and then we can look for like a panic of similar to '94 or.
But see, this is my thing about Hillary.
Panic.
Listen to this. So Hillary makes the case for. She's a woman, and people in hell, there's a special place for them if they don't vote for Hillary because they're women. This is why she carted out Madeleine Albright out of the Crypt Keeper cellar. But every time she gets out there on the stage, who does she bring out there with her? She brings out the philanderer in chief. She brings out Bill Clinton. And for those people who sit there and say, why is she carting him out? Can she not stand on her own? Why doesn't she market herself as Hillary Rodham, which is exactly what she did on her emails? Why not?
I think you're almost giving her too much credit. I think you're overlooking the fact that she's goddamn near a war criminal now.
Well, not only that. I think
being a war criminal, she's definitely a profiteer. I mean, wasn't she the one that said we need to start looking at Iraq as investment potential for American companies?
No. She said everything about Iraq was we came, we saw, we died with that horrible cackle.
Right. Yeah, but then there's transcripts that show her giving speeches saying that Iraq is now a business opportunity for America. It's no longer a war.
It should be a business opportunity for her husband and the Clinton Foundation, which is everything that she does whenever she was the Secretary of State.
Right. I mean, there's just acres and acres of things that should be taking Hillary Clinton down, and she's still here. So, newsflash, she's the one.
But
she's the one.
Is that now because there hasn't been a chance for Donald Trump to go after her? Do you think? Because honestly, I don't really look at Donald Trump having good.
He wants about her. How is he going to prevent his helicopter blowing up? And I go ahead and laugh. I mean, it's not like it hasn't happened.
Right now, he's got Secret Service protection. So I'll tell you what, that'd be a bad day for that agency.
Well, it's not like the Clinton death list is only like 2 or 3 names long.
Yeah, ask Ron Brown about that.
Yeah. Let's ask. We could ask a whole bunch of guys about that. What is it, like 64 people on that list?
Something, and it grows.
I mean, very, very interesting. So yeah, no, whatever. Yeah, Trump can dance and act the clown and all that, and America can back the clown. Hillary's getting in.
Well, and here's the thing, because when it comes to gun rights, I don't see Donald Trump ever saying anything in terms of what he would stand up for or what his view is. Whereas, at least with Hillary, we know exactly what we're getting.
Trump wants a huge wall, and that's it. Donald Trump wants a huge wall, and basically people just don't want a politician again.
Well, and I think that's exactly what they're getting when they go that way. They're getting exactly what that is. I mean, Donald Trump is a politician that runs a business.
Right, and as a businessman, he knows exactly what he has to say to appeal to his customers.
Right, and which is the same thing as what Hillary Clinton's doing, except her customers tend to be the same cloth.
But they're all lawyers.
Oh, certainly, yeah, certainly. Donald Trump didn't get to be where he's at without knowing how to make a few ones and zeros in his day.
Maybe we want a car salesman president now. We want a guy who's really good at selling like repossessed hot tubs.
I think that's what we're going to get.
So, but I don't think that's what we're going to get. We're getting Hillary.
I don't know. I think,
I'll tell you what.
I will bet you. As much as he talked about Hillary, I think that she has no choice but to go after him, because I heard his his quote today, about Hillary being an abject failure as a Secretary of State, and she's not strong enough, she can't get it done, she doesn't have the intestinal fortitude. I think it would be
He's a
interesting to see them at a debate.
racist, bigoted, misogynist. Therefore, his argument is invalid. Now, let's get back to me and you here real quick. I'll bet you a box at 9mm versus a box at 5.56, about the same price range. I say it's Hillary.
I'm going to say that if this goes to fruition, I'm going to say that Donald Trump has the staying power. Don't personally like either of them, but I think in a head-to-head match, I think Donald Trump has such fervent fans.
You said it was going to be a Cruz Rubio ticket. You said it was going to be Cruz Bio.
Yeah, I did, and up until today, there was a possibility of at least Cruz being in that. But here's the thing. You take a look at the issues that Hillary Clinton, we know where she stands on in terms of gun rights. It's not good for those of us who like the shooting sports or anything like that. And I still think that Donald Trump is an enigma when it comes to that.
It's not good for us. You want to be able to defend ourselves.
But you know what? There's so many Americans out there that don't want to defend themselves. So many Americans are out there that are willing to put the safety of themselves and their families in the hands of police departments who respond maybe after 11 minutes. So in the heat of something going on, when you need the police there right away, they're at an average 11 to 13 minutes away from you. What kind of bad stuff can happen in that 13 minutes?
Well, I'll tell you what, 125 grain full metal jacketed bullet out of a 357 Magnum moves about 1,450 feet per second. So
much faster than a policeman.
That's right. And you know what? You can carry a 357 all day and you won't hurt your back. Yep. Try that with a cop.
Yeah. I believe that the eternal words of Ice Cube, ring true.
The pit bull.
Yep, there you go.
That was What was the name of that song? Man's Best Friend. That's the name.
There you
Shout out for Ice Cube and Man's Best Friend. So I'd like to just second real quick. I'd like to before we hit the four rules. I just like to talk about the prescience of our song. And I'm totally stealing it again. It's our song done by the Gitmos. It's an awesome band. They've got other music there on SoundCloud, on YouTube. Check them out. THE Gitmos, Gitmos. Check those guys out. But really, Nick, if you listen to the lyrics of our opening song, could it not be more prescient for today? Could it not have more application for today's United States?
Yeah, definitely. And, speaking of coming up and buying a gun and buying ammo, the U.S. Army has orders to produce small arms ammunition at Lake City, and it calls for calibers 50 caliber, 5.56, and 7.62 at a combined value of $210 million.
So $210 million using like government contract. What are they getting? Like 4 boxes?
I don't think it's going to be that few. I think it's going to be quite a bit more. So
four rules real quick.
Go for it.
Rule number 1: every firearm is loaded until you physically and visually inspect and confirm that it is not loaded. Rule number 2: keep that muzzle pointed in a safe direction at all times. Don't point at anything you don't intend to destroy. Rule number 3: know what your target is, know what's beyond your target at all times. And rule number 4, most important rule: keep the booger hook off the bank switch until you are ready to discharge the weapon. Not be a negligent statistic. Thank you very much.
There you go. That is, as Connery would say, your end of the lesson.
Here endeth the lesson.
Yeah.
All right. So anything you got kind of like planned on in the middle of the week?
The biggest thing right now is getting a rail to complete a build. I've sold some items, so I'm putting the money together to do that. I'm thinking about looking at Midwest Industries again, whether or not it's going to be a key mod or an M-Lock rail. I kind of like the weight of the older Generation 1 quad rails. But everything is marketed now for the M-Lock or the customizable key mod rails. So I just got to see what they have available. But I do want it in a 15-inch platform, so that way I can go ahead and have as much of the barrel covered as possible. Just it adds weight to the front end of the rifle, helps keep the the barrel from raising very much during firing.
Cool beans. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to have a chance this in this coming week. A friend of mine just bought a Just Right carbine in 9mm, and that's kind of an AR-15-esque looking 9mm carbine. Feeds from Glock magazines in a forward position, similar to an AR-15, and externally it resembles an AR-15, but it does not operate under the same gas tube principle as the AR-15 series. It's I believe from what I've seen on it, it operates more along the lines of a 22 with like a large bolt and a spring, and it's a side charger, not a rear charging firearm, and takes commonly available Glock magazines, and I'm really looking forward to put my hands on it and see what it'll do. I really got a soft spot for 9mm carbines, and especially ones that take very, very common and easy to find magazines, such as the Glock magazine or the Beretta magazine or something.
Yeah,
so,
the Glock 17
I'm
magazines.
looking forward to that. Maybe you'll be able to get some sort of video up, maybe even review it.
That'd be cool. Yeah, one thing that we don't normally get a chance to talk a lot about shotguns. Outdoor Life has a story on their webpage, and they link to it through Facebook. They torture tested the Mossberg 500s and the Remington 870s, and they have crowned a provisional toughest of the tough. Could you venture to guess who won that battle?
It's the 500.
You would be correct. They said, while virtually a tie in most categories, they said that both weapons, fired reliably. They said that the Mossberg 500 tended to handle the stresses just a bit better than the 870. So, for any,
I've always been a fan of the 500, whether it's due to it's a little bit more economical range, or honestly, I like exactly where the safety is on the Mossberg. So I like the controls of it better.
Yeah, so I mean that was an interesting story that came out today. So I figured I'd pass that along.
You see tests like that, everybody wants to torture test a Glock or an AR-15 or whatever the HK pistol of the month is, but rarely do you see one on a common item like that, like on a 12 gauge. So good for those guys for doing that.
That's not good. Not only that, but the best category that they tested it in would be I guess they called it the paddle boat test. And they use the buttstock as a paddle.
That's pretty cool. I hear the music coming in. Everybody, thank you for listening. UCY.TV, your home for all kinds of cool shit. Hey, I got to give a shout out to Lonnie. Lonnie Clark with Age of Fission, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 11 a.m. Give her a listen. Everybody, thanks a lot.